Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Mobility Matters, a podcast focused on transportation and mobility. I'm your host, Javier Betancourt, Executive Director of the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, broadcasting live out of Community Newspapers Studios here in South Miami. Today, I have two wonderful guests who are going to talk about their backgrounds, their priorities for transportation, and the district that they both live in. And that would be District 12, by which I mean County Commission District 12, which is kind of the western suburban areas of our county. And my guests are the commissioner of that district, Commissioner J.C. Bermudez, and former mayor of the city of Doral, and the CITT Trust member, Joe Curbelo. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Javi. It's a pleasure to be here with Joe, with you, and with here at Community Newspapers with the Miller brothers and family.
Yeah, and I know it's a decent commute for you, right? You know, you live well out west, and coming east is always a challenge, but hopefully you made it okay. Joe, did you ride your bike in?
I did not. Remember, I work in the north end of the county, so.
That's true. That's true.
Joe goes to the other part of the county when he works at all the way to Miami Gardens.
Yeah, so let's tell folks a little bit about that. Gentlemen, tell me about your backgrounds. We know you're an elected official. We know you are a member of the CITT, but your professional backgrounds and a little bit about yourself. So we'll start with the commissioner.
Well, you know, I grew up here, Javi, as you know, and I just found out that we both graduated from the same high school, Hialeah Miami Lakes.
Go Trojans!
Go Trojans! And obviously,
slightly different years.
Yeah, slightly different years, no doubt. But that's okay. I went to Miami undergrad, Notre Dame Law School. Obviously, came back. You know, I'm the founding mayor of the city of Doral. Came back and now decided to run for the county commission. We won last year. It was a very interesting race, as we were discussing a little bit before, but we won by about 34 points, which made me very happy that, you know, the residents of District 12, understood that, the history of what we have done in Doral, and that we would try to take some of these ideas and views to the county. So, and you and I have known each other for a long time. I think I even knocked on the door of one of your relatives one day when you were there, and when I was campaigning. So, look, for me, South Florida is important, and I'm enjoying my time on the county commission because we can make a difference, not only in District 12, but countywide.
Outside of public service, what's your professional background?
I'm a lawyer. I've been practicing law, too long probably now, as they would say, and originally a litigator. Once I got into the government, I had to switch more to really, contractual work, transactional work, simply because of the time. And that's really, we raised our three daughters here, my wife and our three girls. So, for me, South Florida is paradise. The time spent up north in South Bend with the cold weather convinced me that snow is wonderful to visit, but not to live in.
Another thing we have in common, by the way, so we both went to Catholic universities.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, Georgetown, and we're rivals at certain things, but good company.
Good company. Even though we'll leave that discussion for another day.
Well, thank you for being here again. Joe, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in Jersey, but grew up in Miramar.
Also escaped the snow.
and at the time, that was the 305 when I was growing up there. Went to University of Florida, came back to Miami, started working here, met my wife here, raised my family here. I'm neither a politician nor a transportation expert. I work in the technology industry at Hard Rock Stadium. Been there for 31 years, and what I thought was working just for a football team has evolved into working for tennis and Formula One racing and concerts, and so
it's a year-round venue now.
It is so bringing great events to our community, but we need transportation to get our guests to and from the venue. That's another district. I know we're going to be talking about District 12. So I reside in District 12, and what got me interested in Citizens Independent Transportation Trust in 2002 when the half-penny tax passed, I was excited, and that we're going to get Metro Rail all over the county, and then when it didn't happen, rather than being one of those people that just complains, I thought I'd get involved, understand what happened and what I could do to help.
And so you are now one of our longest serving members on the trust. How many years have you been there?
I've been on the trust for 13 years.
13 years, okay. Mm-hmm. And in those 13 years, name some of the things that you've kind of prioritized and that you've been passionate about.
Well, the biggest project, and it was a project that was in progress when I started, was the was the Orange Line on opening the station at the airport. Yeah, refurbishing, replacing all of the Metro Mover vehicles and all of the Metro Rail vehicles. That was really big, and that's something that we're very proud of.
And you're also a big bike ped proponent, right?
Absolutely. Last mile, first mile, last mile is very important to me. And I really like what the commissioner did when he was mayor at Doral, and look forward to seeing that extended through excuse me, throughout our district and county.
So that begs a question. He threw you under the bus. So what did you do that was so impressive to Member Curbelo?
No, I think in Doral we did initially really try to make sure that there were two things I think that we did were very important. The first one that Joe was talking about was we tried to make sure that pedestrian and bikes would be able to connect all across our city. And he's now at the county, Nathan Kogan, who was our planner at the time,
Great.
Helped coordinate with the original council what we thought was an opportunity to try to make sure that we would be bike friendly in the city. And actually all the new developments were required to make sure that they connected. Also not, they had a connector for the bike lanes in their development. So the second thing I think we did that was very important was, trying to get the money from the CITT for the municipality, which did go a long way. I mean, I think that if we all remember, and I agree with Joe that we probably had different expectations to a certain extent when we all voted for that. The municipalities, the vote takes place right before Miami Gardens and Doral incorporate. Mm-hmm. And originally, we were not getting our percentage, and I know, and this is another discussion, but, I think in Doral it's worked out perfectly because our trolley system, which Javier, will probably be right before COVID, we were at about a million people using it. And in a city where there was no Miami-Dade transit west of 87th Avenue, that was critical. So we were able to, along with Shirley Gibson, who was the original mayor of Miami Gardens, myself and our councils, we were able to get our portion. And I think in both of our municipalities, that's gone a long way to helping. And today, the trolley system obviously connects the Metro Rail, which it does, all the way to
the Palmetto Station.
Yeah, the Palmetto Station, correct, which hopefully will get renamed someday. But anyways, the Palmetto Station, it goes to FIU also, and now also to the new bus depot west of Dolphin Mall. So it's I think that we put that half penny to really good use, and the people of Doral have become have used it extensively. And not just the people of Doral, people that come to work in Doral have started to use it, and it's important.
And I'm really impressed that the city, under your leadership, did so much in bicycle pedestrian mobility, because it's a very suburban area, a lot of industrial, right? Not the type of place you would imagine there'd be a lot of cycling, right? And you could see on Miami Beach and more dense urban areas. But to do that in Doral, I think was wonderful and a testament to your leadership. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I think it's important too. We believe it or not, we do have a lot of cyclists. Yeah. If you go on a Saturday to Doral, you'll see we even have one of the very unique places, which is actually a cycling bar where you can get coffee and buy a bike at the same time, which is very unique. It's right by City Hall and the adaptive reuse area. So it's a very interesting use of the industrial area, where now you have this place where cyclists congregate on weekends, meet, have a little coffee, ride and come back.
You're one of those? I know you cycle a lot.
I was not aware of that, so I'll have to find that. I've been one of those recreational cyclists in Doral. There's one area that they affectionately call a hueco, an industrial area, goes around a big circle, and there's two types of cycling, right? You have the recreational cycling, but your pedestrian bicycle infrastructure also needs to be practical. You need to get from point A to point B.
Right. Safely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so District 12 is a lot more about more than just Doral, right? There
Absolutely.
Are municipalities, some unincorporated. So tell us a little more about the district as a whole.
Look, I think the district is interesting because you have 5 municipalities in an unincorporated area, which is, I believe, where Joe lives, and I'm sure it's where Joe lives. And each area is a little bit different. I mean, Medley has it's primarily industrial area with very few residents. Hialeah Gardens is obviously a mix and surrounded by Okeechobee. The western part of Hialeah, which is growing extensively, is obviously to the west and close to Miami Lakes. Sweetwater, it's close to Doral and also close to the unincorporated area. So it's a very unique district in the sense, and obviously it's a very large district, second largest, I believe, in size because it goes all the way to Collier County. But the interesting part about it is that it's a very unique district from the perspective of transportation because it's not the same issue in each area. Sure. And, in Joe's area where you might have, people that are trying to get to go west and south, in the Hialeah area, they're having difficulties getting in and out because when the area was annexed, there really is very few ways to get in and out. And it's a problem we're going to have to solve. We all know about the famous bridge scenario that took place before I became commissioner, and hopefully we'll be able to, with the help of the state, find some positive solutions for the long term.
So, Joe, from your perspective, what are some of the key transportation challenges in the district and some of the priorities for addressing those challenges?
Well, I think outside of the Doral municipality, we need to look at pedestrian bicycle infrastructure. We had a presentation last night that touched on the Dolphin Station that's west of the Dolphin Mall, and they talked about a project that they have establishing pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure from there to the Dolphin Mall. But there are other areas that we can get to from that station. It's very important that station's not a destination. People get there and they need to take another mode of transportation to get to their destination. We did talk about the future plan that they have to go west to 137th Avenue, which would help connect the unincorporated area that we talked about where I live. And something that I gave the Department of Transit and Public Works to look at is to go from that park and ride facility to go north. There we have all those new shopping centers, a Home Depot, a Ross, and restaurants. And if you take that infrastructure, have some good pedestrian bicycle infrastructure north along that roadway to 25th Street, now you've connected the entire Doral facility.
So in addition to bike ped, what's the major transit kind of project that we're keeping an eye on that would serve that district? So I guess I'm assuming that's east-west, right?
Yeah.
That connects
east-west.
Yeah. And where are we with that?
Well, look, I think I'm optimistic for the first time in a long time because you've heard me say this before. We've been talking about all these corridors, but the east-west for the time that I was the founding mayor in Doral and had more hair. That was a long time ago.
Still have more than I do.
Right.
So.
We've been talking about the same issue for a long time. And I think I'm optimistic. Some of my colleagues that are along the east-west corridor are all optimistic. CSX has finally taken a different approach. There's a new leadership at CSX. And if we are going to do at some point some sort of rail or light rail, the plan, that we had discussed at the TPO previously, it's going to be very difficult to pull off. I mean,
that was bus rapid transit,
bus rapid transit
along or adjacent to 836.
836, yes. Yeah. But it had a lot of, it's going to be complicated. So I'm optimistic. At least I know my colleagues have met separately, obviously, and I have met had initial conversations with CSX. I'm very optimistic that we can figure out a way to finally get some sort of opportunity in the east-west corridor where we'll have some rail and it'll be economically feasible. Because the key here,
right,
as you know, Javier and Joe, it's the money. And but I'm optimistic for the first time. Now one of the things that's happened with the new commission is, and the new members of the TPO is, we're insistent upon trying to move things along. The thing here is to make decisions. When we talked about the BRT down south, a couple of years ago, the question was, we've been sitting here forever. Let's make a decision.
Yeah.
And I think I think it's happening. So I always tell people the reason why people didn't make decisions 20 years ago is because they felt they might lose an election. Now that we got term limits, everybody's like, we have to leave a legacy. So what we do today, we may see the results when we're out of office, but it's the right thing to do.
No, and I've observed the major difference in the sense of urgency.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely there. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about CSX a little. And for those who may not know, CSX is an existing railroad. So we have FEC, which is where Brightline runs, and then we have CSX, which is basically the rest of the county.
Right.
And they run existing freight on many of those corridors. Some of them, they're not running anything, as I understand it. So the idea is to partner with CSX and run both freight and passenger rail, right? So much like the Brightline example, and then build up maybe some land use around the stations along those.
Correct, and I think that you see that not only with the Dolphin Station, but you'll see it along that corridor. I mean, Brightline did, and I can tell you this on what they did going up to Orlando. You know, they had rail already, and obviously they were able to double track some of these areas. On the east-west corridor, we do have an active CSX line because a lot of the rock mining facilities, you'll see them come. In fact, they come right by our district office twice a day.
Yes.
So,
No, I've gotten stuck there a few times, yes.
So, and I think the idea would be to, and look, there's natural areas that would probably, the International Mall, which is right in that quadrant, is an area that obviously would be perfect. We have the library there already. We have other facilities. Might be an area that we could make sure the mall stays profitable the way it is, but also make sure we get some ability to have people live by, rapid transit, which would be a step in the right direction. I always felt that the east-west corridor would work if we took the edges and we did allow some, let's call it more livable or higher density in those areas, so people would get used to using transit, and hopefully that'll happen. But it's going to take a mentality change, though. It's going to have to change. We're all going to have to change the way we think.
So, thinking optimistically, when do you think we might have an east-west corridor in service?
Oh, wow.
Best case scenario.
That's a great question. The TPO just approved, and we just approved the study. And the study we wanted, I think we have a deadline of 3 months. We're not doing one of these studies that'll take a year. I hope that the conversations with CSX are ongoing. The new leadership has reached out, like I said, to, I think, though, certainly all of us who are impacted by the east-west corridor, which runs all the way, obviously, from the Miami area to the Kendall area or the Homestead area. The decision, I hope, would be sooner than later. Maybe if we can get the study done, we can have those conversations. If there's a feasible way to find the financing, which is the key here, because the CSX, for the first time, if you remember, both of you may remember when we first talked to CSX as a TPO back in about 2017 or along that time, the amount they wanted was just not reasonable for the county. Yeah. But now it looks like it might be a different story. All those things have to fall into place, and if they do, then I think we can make a decision, hopefully. I would hope before my first term is done for sure. It'll take a while to get that going, but and then we'll have to deal with the other issues, who runs this, et cetera. So, but I'm optimistic about it.
So hopefully within this decade. That's what we're hoping.
Oh yeah, definitely hoping. Okay. If it isn't within this decade, then we're in a lot of trouble.
Joe, any additional thoughts on the east-west corridor BRT versus the CSX?
Well, I'm in full alignment with endorsing rail, whether heavy rail, light rail. The infrastructure's there. I mean, the biggest cost when you're building a rail line is having right of way and land acquisition, and that's we're beyond that. So it's very promising that the CSX has come to the table with reasonable bargaining. And it's a corridor, like the commissioner said, it's an active corridor, but it's not a very active corridor. There's only maybe half a dozen trains a week that traverse the corridor. So it's a fully operational corridor that's there, and it makes sense to take advantage of it. And those lines, you could take it right into the Miami Intermodal Center.
Now, for any kind of transit to work, you generally need density along those corridors. Is the density there? I know a lot of people use 836 and the adjoining streets to commute to work. Is the density there along that corridor essentially to support that transit, or are we looking more at a park and ride situation where people will drive to the east-west corridor, wherever it ends up being, and taking that to work?
Look, I think
and how do we then incentivize development to take place if we need it?
Well, I think the RTZ obviously has led to the possibility.
RTZ is
the transit corridors along
rapid transit
zoning corridors. Yeah. So I think that one of the key things is it's not all there, but it probably, at least when you look at the portion from Sweetwater through Doral, going in that direction, it can and some of it is there already, even on the Fontainebleau side, let's call it. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's step one. But, it was interesting because during the campaign, the unincorporated area, which is where Joe lives, I knocked on a couple of doors of people who were already using the Dolphin Station and work east. And, their main complaint obviously was, we need, if I miss the 8 o'clock bus, then I got to wait till 8:30.
More frequency.
Right. They want more frequency. But there are people using it, and it's, again, I go back to what I was saying before. If it's efficient and effective, people will use it. If I can tell you that you're not going to spend an hour on the 836, but I can get you downtown in 15 minutes, if I can convince you of that, I think most people will use it.
Yeah, so coincidentally, I was having a conversation with the new chair of the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce, who is the managing shareholder of Carlton Fields. So the prominent law firm, prominent attorney, prominent leader in our community, and she uses that service. Yeah. She goes to the Dolphin Park Ride, parks a car, and grabs that, I guess they call it the Dolphin Express, which when traffic is bad on 836, so always, hugs that shoulder in that red lane, right? And so thereby avoiding traffic. So here you have the chair of the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce using that service. So it's a testament, I think, to the fact that it must be working.
Yeah, I think it is. And, Joe can tell you, and he brought up a very, very good point, which is first mile, last mile always becomes, in South Florida, that's always a key issue. I think, Javi, what I was saying before is the mentality, when you have an example like the one you just mentioned, when you have, she can be working, doesn't have to be driving the car, frustrated, people cutting in and out. When people start seeing that, transportation is actually better for them than being stuck in traffic. Right. Because even though we use the two T words at the same time, they're not exactly the same. I think that people will buy into it, and that goes, along the North Corridor, goes along here on US 1. If you could figure out, it's at least, the number of lawyers that actually get on the Metro Rail from the Pinecrest, Palmetto Bay area is probably one that you can build the county's largest law firm. I don't know if other people use it because it should have gone, and I agree with you, it should have gone all the way down south to where other people need it. But at least now we have BRT.
Which is why transit needs good liability insurance because of all those lawyers using the system.
And if I may interject,
please.
Today's society and the younger generations, they don't, it used to be people didn't want to get out of their car. Now people do want to get out of their car because they don't want to drive. They want to be able to be on their phone and be on social media, and transit gives you the opportunity to do that.
Right, and we need to make those options available to them, right? So let's go back to municipalities for a second. So we talked a little bit about trolleys and Doral. Obviously, all the other cities within a district also have trolleys. Right. But they've also started to introduce a new concept called on-demand transportation. Correct. Primarily through a vendor called Freebie. So people know it as Freebie. We'll just use that term. Tell us about that service. Is it something that you think is adding a good option for folks, or is it too inefficient? I mean, I know there's some controversy around on-demand. What are your thoughts? And we'll start with Joe since.
Well, I think it's a usable service. I think it's when you talk about one of the goals of transit is to get vehicles off the road. Right. So if it's something like Freebie where you have multiple people sharing the vehicle, that's one thing. Other ride share services like Uber and Lyft, which I've used, they're wonderful, but that's not taking vehicles off the street. So I think it's in the right application, it's very practical.
Yeah, in Doral, it worked very well. I mean, Freebie has been, particularly in the downtown Doral area and the City Place area. So the Freebie system worked very well. But I do think it's an option. It's funny you should mention that because one of my concerns, and I'm having a meeting before the next commission meeting, was GoConnect. And the thing with GoConnect,
which is the county's on-demand transit services,
but they were not connecting to the unincorporated area of my district, which I brought up. And to me, it's like it can't always be Eastern centric. The 5 municipalities have their own systems, and some of them, like Doral, have Freebie, and Hialeah have Freebie too. But I think it's very important that the unincorporated area also have the opportunity to be part of the process. So I'm looking forward to extending, or at least the opportunity for the unincorporated area to use GoConnect, much like other parts of the southern part of the county are using it right now. So I think it's feasible. I think Joe's right. The idea is to try to get vehicles off, but it's still a good thing because I think let's just say that GoConnect expands to to the area, the unincorporated area, it's a lot easier to just say I'm going from here to there and back, whether it's a restaurant or somewhere else, than necessarily being on the road with your own vehicle, which sometimes it might be a little bit different. The mentality of the person driving is different. So I think it is a part of the solution.
Okay, so let's talk about something that I think is probably near and dear to your heart, Joe, being an IT professional. The intersection of technology and transportation. So obviously we're in this midst of really a revolution in transportation because of the growth in technology. So you have things like rideshare. We talked about Uber, Freebie, right? A lot of technology behind that. You have big data. You have the future of autonomous vehicles maybe around the corner. So any thoughts on how technology is going to be shaping transportation in the future and the opportunities that come with that, and maybe some of the challenges that are introduced as well?
Well, I think you touched on a lot of the different things that technology will help. If you go back to people sitting in their vehicles, whether it's a personal vehicle or a bus, I think look at traffic signalization, and it's, the old style traffic is okay, 1 minute for this direction, 1 minute for that direction, and that's just the way it is 24/7. Now with technology, you digitize and synchronize all of this, and it doesn't have to be the same interval throughout the day. You can have sensors to see how much traffic is in one direction and make adjustments on the fly, so that if the north-south corridor going through the intersection is clear but is backing up east-west, let's give more priority to east-west.
What we call smart signals. Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And I know as a CITT, we've invested in a lot of that technology. Mm-hmm. That was one of the core promises, actually back 20 years ago, one of the core promises of the PTP. So we've been thinking about this for a long time. Any thoughts on technology and how that's going to shape mobility?
Don't get me going on traffic signalization. I get very
Good, that makes for good television.
Yeah, bring it up. Yeah, no, look, I agree with Joe and with you. That's critical. But we've seen, that we have to make sure that technology works. And if it's not working, it's a problem. And we go back to promises that are made when some of these companies enter into these, multi-million-dollar contracts with our county. But the result, and one thing I have told the mayor over and over and my colleagues is efficiency and effectiveness, is very important. And you can't manage what you can't measure. And that's been a problem I've seen, at least from the outside looking at the county. And it was there are two things I emphasized when I was the mayor of Doral, which was, you can't manage what you can't measure. So you've got to have a dashboard, you got to measure, see how you can get better. It's not a matter of criticizing. And number two, you can't work in silos. When I got to the county, and I got an item coming up now that I don't understand, why Public Works, for example, doesn't know where maybe RER is at, and they may not know where water and sewer is at. It doesn't make any sense to me. And you heard me say it the other day when I still can't understand how the county doesn't know what's under the airport, but somehow Odebrecht does from their Airport City project. So I think there's one other thing that's very important, and this does impact the CITT, so I think it's important for both of you. And I brought it up at the TPO and plan to formally bring it up at both the TPO and the county commission. All the public transit systems that are being run by municipalities should have a way to talk, quote unquote, and technologically speak to the county system. Right. Because the reality is that if you are coming from Kendall but you work in Doral, you may be able to begin on the county system, but then use, actually at some point could use the Sweetwater system and then maybe the Doral system. Yeah. So we need to figure out a way that the scheduling and the efficiency and the effectiveness of these systems that are funded by the CITT, and I know we probably have to have buy-in, but we need to have people to come to the table and say, let's see how we can work on the schedules to try to make this more efficient and more effective across the county, because it is still an interconnected system.
Yeah, I tell people we actually have 37 transit systems in Miami-Dade County. Yeah. We have Miami-Dade County, we have 34 municipalities, we have Tri-Rail, and we have Brightline. Right? And getting all that to work together in an integrated way is important, right? Because at the end of the day, consumer doesn't care who's operating the thing. They just want to get from point A to point B in the most efficient way possible.
But that's where technology, and I defer to Joe on that, that's where technology can make a big difference.
Yeah. No? Any additional thoughts, Bert? Yeah.
No, I agree. I think when you talk about traversing all these different systems, you want to be careful about how many different seats somebody has to take.
There's that too. Yeah.
I think a one-seat ride is impractical. But when you want to go from point A to point B, ideally you don't have to transfer more than twice. Wherever you're starting from, you take one mode of transit, one corridor to get to a main system, and then that main system will get you to the other end, and then you might have to take another smaller system to get to your final destination.
Yeah. And I think that the only way for that to even work, even if we were to take two seats, for example, you have to talk to each other. And that's when, in Doral, we always had the issue that Metro-Dade never really went west of 87th. And as the city grew to the west, that's why our CITT dollars were so important to start the transit system, because literally we wouldn't have had public transportation. Even to this day, there is no public transportation west of 97th, except maybe on 41st. That's about it. But when you look at the residential area where somebody may go to work in one of those homes or live there and want to go downtown, we don't, it's very complicated. So you would need to, which is why the core, the trolley system in Doral connecting, for example, to the Dolphin Station to the Metro Rail is so important. Even FIU students, the fact that they don't need to any longer necessarily get in the car, they can take the trolley system and go to school and come back. A lot of professors that live in Doral use it. So I just think we need to use technology to as we all know, technology could be great. Yep. It could also be, so
it was a double-edged sword.
Yes,
right?
double-edged sword. But the signalization issue is very important. I'm glad Joe brought that up, and because that has been something that I think, again, that's a countywide issue that impacts all of us.
So one last thing on technology. So we have increasingly hearing about this concept called urban air mobility, and I know there have been several discussions at the TPO about it. What is it? Is it realistic? Is it really a mass transit solution? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, we've discussed it. I think it's going to be, we have trouble with street mobility. So, when you tell me that somebody's going to be having, in the air driving, I get a little bit concerned. Now, it's a little bit Jetson-like. I started thinking of the Jetsons. I think there might be some practical use to it, eventually. I was reminding people that, and I read a Smithsonian article a long time ago, we've had flying vehicles since the 1940s, just like we've had electric vehicles since the 1900s. Right. It's just a matter of the early 1900s, 1902, 1903. But so the question becomes, when, is this something practical or pragmatic? I know you mentioned before, and Mayor Jimenez, now Congressman Jimenez, and I used to have this discussion all the time, about these vehicles that would really, drive themselves. If you've driven in Miami-Dade County, I can tell you it's not going to take too long before it may not be as practical here as it may be somewhere else. So I think the first use of that is going to be maybe, I know there's been some discussions with the airport about, potential use for coming in and out of that area. I think we're a ways away from it seeing it be a reality on our, I shouldn't say our streets, right? I should say our our airways.
Yeah, it's a little scary, I have to admit. What happens when things go wrong?
They must come down.
They must come down somewhere.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's take one of these urban air mobility, whatever they're called, and let's fly out of District 12 for a second and land in District 1 and talk about your place of employment and maybe some of the transit issues around there. So you work at the stadium. Sure. A beloved institution that many of us still call Joe Robbie, but I know you can't do that. So tell us a little more about some of the transit and let's just say transportation challenges in that area and some of the opportunities like the North Corridor.
Absolutely. As you know, our chairperson, Oscar Brainin, that's the district he represents in Miami Gardens. And really, you go back to the Metro Rail planning back in the 1970s, and the original alignment of Metro Rail was to go up 27th Avenue and stay on 27th Avenue all the way to the county line. And for political reasons, it took a left turn on 74th Street and went into the Hialeah area. So that community has felt for 50 years now like they haven't been serviced by mass transit. So now there's a lot of momentum now to extend heavy rail, probably Metro Rail, from where it makes that left turn at 74th Street to continue up 27th Avenue again to the county line. Obviously, that services a stadium and it services all the communities along that corridor, which is a pretty dense corridor. I'm hopeful that with the funds that Broward County has for transit now, that they can somehow connect, even extend that into their community.
So Broward has a full penny
They have
sales tax now that they adopted a few years ago.
That's right.
For those who don't know.
That's right. And from the stadium perspective, the events that we have, our parking inventory is dwindling and dwindling because we built a tennis campus. Yeah. Now we have a racetrack, and we built the Dolphins training facility on the property. So our parking inventory is a lot smaller, and I think it would benefit the community, benefit our guests if we could, if it was easier to take mass transit directly to the stadium and not need that on-site parking.
So wearing your TPO hat and even your county commission hat, I suppose, any additional thoughts on the North Corridor?
No, I agree with Joe on that. I mean, I'm one of the ones impacted by parking as a Canes fan. I'm not a Dolphins fan, but
not a Dolphins
I'm a
fan.
Colts fan, diehard Colts fan since a kid. But
no one's perfect. So.
Yeah, that's what. but as a Canes season ticket holder, I've been impacted by the. No, I think Joe touched upon it. Look, I think one of the issues that we've had with our half penny sales tax and with the original effort to get a penny sales tax is what I went back to originally. There's been disappointment in the public in not keeping some of these promises and not being efficient and effective. And I think that that's one of the problems that we've had. And sometimes when you lose the public's confidence, it's hard to get it back, and I think we need to, I tell my friends in the business community all the time, you've heard me say this before, Javi, that, when I was on the U.S. Conference of Mayors board for so many years, I would go to, other cities and I would see that the business community was much more demanding of their elected officials working with the business community to find solutions. We've kind of lost that here for reason X, Y, or Z. And I think that is an example of some of the things we need to improve. And certainly, I think that promise to the North Corridor, now hopefully will be fulfilled, and it will be a good step in making sure that we regain the public's confidence.
So while we're talking about other corridors and thinking outside of District 12, let's talk about some of the other corridors and see if you have anything new to share on that. So we have a number of conversations I know that are happening with Brightline on the Northeast Corridor. Is there anything new happening there? Are we closer to making that a reality?
Yeah, we're very close to making that a reality. That'll probably be the first, and I think I support it wholeheartedly. I think it's a great opportunity for the municipalities, not just the county up there. And it makes logical sense to use rail if it's already there, right, as Joe mentioned before. And I can tell you this from the perspective of what Brightline can do and what CSX can do. It's going to be very hard for us to get, even now, with more dollars, to get the funding that we would want to cover the whole county on elevated rail. I mean, it's going to be very difficult. So we need to find a combination of and do what is pragmatic and practical, which is why I supported the BRT on the South Corridor, to just extend, Metro Rail to Palmetto Bay. In my opinion, that doesn't service the people that would need it the most, which are the people in Homestead and the unincorporated area of South Dade that may need to go east to work.
And for those who may not know, so Brightline is currently running passenger trains on that corridor. But the idea is to have a different level of service, commuter level of service.
Correct.
That's not going to be as nice as what Brightline runs today, let's be honest. But it's going to be effective in getting people to and from work at a much lower price point. And we'll have stations throughout that corridor, right? And hopefully even into Broward and West Palm Beach. So that's going to be fantastic. So let's talk about Beach Corridor for a second, or Bay Link, as it used to be called. Are we optimistic that something's finally going to happen there? I know there are some voices on the beach that are starting to push back.
But, look, I think I'm optimistic. We had a plan. The plan now looks like it has been changed. But there's still a lot
of people mover. Right?
Yeah, but there's still a lot of opposition on the beach. I don't want to be Commissioner Higgins. In speaking to her, I know the last meeting she was at the beach was she may have needed police protection to get out of there. So
she can handle herself.
She can handle herself. She's a tough cookie. And she knows transportation, obviously. But one of the things I think is it's been needed for so long, and there hasn't been go back to the political will. Sometimes. you've got to make a decision that is a tough one. I mean, we weren't elected to make the easy decisions. If that was the case, then why be in this? We were elected to make the tough decisions. I think from my perspective, I think it's a positive thing for countywide. Now, I do know that there are people on the beach in particular that may not feel that way, and I hope the Miami Beach leaders, are supportive of this.
Right. So in the few minutes we have left, I think we're down to about 5 minutes. Let's talk about opportunities for people to serve. Right? So people are watching this, they're interested in transportation, they're passionate about it. Maybe they want to be a part of the solution and not just railing at the television, as you said earlier, Joe.
Sure.
So CITT, any opportunities for people to serve there?
Absolutely. We have 4 open positions in districts, I think 8, 9, 10.
Oh gosh, I forget the numbers, but yes, we have 4 vacancies on the trust. Yeah,
I have them right here: districts 9, 10, 11, and 13. Okay. So if you don't know what your district is, feel free to call. You can call our office at 305-375-1357 to apply, and we'd love to have you. Like myself, I have a technology background, not political background, not a transportation background, but it is an opportunity to service a community and help make us a more mobile community.
And the only requirements are you must reside in the district that appoints you there, right? So it doesn't help if you work there or own property, you have to reside there full time.
Correct.
And you can't have a financial conflict with the county, right? So if you have a contract with the county, chances are you won't be eligible. And there's another opportunity through the ambassador program. Can we tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. We have this ambassador program. It's an opportunity. You don't have to reside in any specific district, just reside in the county. But you basically ride our different transit systems and report back the experiences to help make it a better system for everybody.
Yeah, and speaking of technology, we do that through an app, right? And the app recognizes that you are participating and actually gives you points that you can then exchange for rewards. So it's incentive-based. So if you're interested in either of those opportunities, folks, please visit our website, miamidade.gov/CITT. Again, that's to either serve on the trust as a trust member, or if you're interested in becoming a CITT ambassador. Moving on to the commissioner, I know you get to make a lot of appointments to things like TPO, advisory committee. So any opportunities that you can share?
Sure. Well, first of all, let me start by thanking Joe for being the appointee to District 12 and
thank you for appointing
he's done. So he's his history and his background and the work he's done with the prior commissioner now has been fantastic. We do. We have about, truthfully now, with the TPO and also with the county commission, we have about 20 openings. One of them that's very important, which for some reason it's difficult to get, ironically, is the bike or pedestrian relationship to the community, the biking.
Is that the BPAC?
The BPAC,
the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
And it's funny because I've had people send me emails. I said, well, could you serve? Because we need somebody to go to these meetings. No, I just want to let you know what I think. I said, well, and Joe's a perfect example of, if you believe in something, give a little bit of time. So we've got about 18, 19 openings, and we've filled about half of the committees that we have appointments for, but there's a number that are still open. So some of them obviously are specific to, for example, the Asian Affairs Advisory Board. Deals with that, but I think that it's a great opportunity to serve. I got my start many years ago at the county helping with the Hispanic Affairs Advisory Board, and eventually became chair much more earlier than I became mayor. And it's a great opportunity to give back to your community.
And I actually served on BPAC. To this day, I can't remember who appointed me, but it was a great experience. So yeah, if you have a vacancy, I would certainly encourage anyone who's interested, particularly in bicycle pedestrian mobility. And if you live in District 12, to please, do they reach out to you, to the TPO for that?
I would tell them to reach out to me because the TPO is going to ask me who we have to nominate. We have to submit the names to the TPO, much like we do with the commission. But reach out to us. We put out a number of social media advisories on this, so it's easier to. If you go on our social media, you'll find it.
Right, and Joe's going to help you find somebody, right? Because
sure.
I know it's near and dear to his heart as well. So. Gentlemen, we are out of time, so I'm going to thank you for coming in here and making that long commute out from out west. Thank you. This is a long read. Not used to having 2 guests. So thanks again for everything you do, for your public service, for being an advocate for alternative transportation, and keep up the great work.
Well, Javi, thank you for having us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Javi, for having us, and thank you guys for the job that both of you do. Great job at the CITT.
It's our pleasure. It's a passion, right?
Indeed it is.
Folks, thank you for joining us here on Mobility Matters. I want to thank community newspapers once again for hosting us and producing the show. You can find us here every other Thursday from 9 to 10 a.m. Please follow us on all the social media channels to learn about upcoming guests. Thank you and have a great day.